Welcome to Forging a Life podcast with Coach Christine Clark. Forging a Life is a Sunglow Transformation production aired on Transformation Talk Radio and all your favorite podcast platforms. If you own a business, have a side hustle, desire to make the leap into self-employment, or just love human interest stories, Forging a Life podcast is for you. Christine Clark is an internationally certified transformational life coach. She is the coach for your entrepreneurial life, and these are her people. Jump into the fire with those forging success on their own terms with courage, tenacity, and resilience. These are men and women you could easily meet on the street in your own community. Gain wisdom, insight, knowledge, and inspiration each episode as these business owners get transparent with Coach Christine Clark, sharing their passions, challenges, and origin stories. This is Forging a Life.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Forging a Life with Coach Christine Clark. My guest today is Aaron Plaskas. Aaron is a financial advisor. He is located in Des Moines, Iowa, and Aaron does a variety of things under this financial advisor heading. We were just having a conversation about how that's a really bad label. So tell us a little bit more, kind of what your forte is and what you do, Aaron.
Well, first, thanks for having me. This is great. And congratulations to you for getting this going.
Thank you.
I should say bad, not in the sense that I'm ashamed of what I do. It's that sometimes the term financial advisor, it does lead some people to groan sometimes, but also because it means something different to a lot of people, which is kind of the point. Because as an advisor, I work in a number of capacities. My role is to help people to develop strategies and plans, long-term financial plans to optimize their wealth, but also to protect their wealth. But it's also, I could serve in an insurance capacity as we're working with different components that all impact a person's financial well-being. So there's a number of things you can call me. Insert joke here, but financial advisor is probably the best one that I've been able to come up with. I want to be able to serve people in a number of capacities.
So Aaron, tell me a little bit about how you ended up in the financial advisement field, doing securities and insurances and serving people that way. I know your story, but let's just break it down, take it a bite at a time. Growing up, when you were in elementary school, did you think that, hey, finances and working with people and putting this complicated stuff together was like what you were going to do? Did you wake up and say, hey, I'm going to go, Dad, I'm going to be a financial advisor?
In elementary school, in my mind, I was playing shortstop for the Chicago White Sox, or I was the drummer of Def Leppard. It was one of those two.
I like that.
Yeah. But no, I want to say no, but when I think about it, in a way, I was sort of inadvertently groomed for it all along.
Tell me about that. What comes to mind? What are you thinking of?
Maybe from an early age, my dad grew up with nothing. He grew up very poor. My grandparents were immigrants from Lithuania. My grandfather was an alcoholic. It's a tough life. He had to scratch and claw. He became very, very conscious and protective of money and his financial well-being. So he knew that early on, that it's very important to save, and he was teaching me that from his perspective as to why that's important.
What were some of the lessons that you were taught as a child?
Well, with him it was a matter of, and so just doing things like teaching me when I'm doing little odd jobs in the neighborhood, mowing lawns, or earning an allowance with the understanding that I'm saving it. That concept of teaching me how important it was. So between both my mom and my dad, and even my grandpa, teaching me about these things, it kind of built into learning about very simple things of compounding interest. And
so how old were you when you learned about compounding
interest? I
interest?
remember talking about these things probably when I was my kid's age, 7, 8 years old.
Wow.
So,
okay.
And it was never as you're doing this because you're a miser and you're selfish. And it wasn't on the opposite end. It wasn't about you're going to get rich by doing this. It was about thinking long term and just making that part of what I did. So I just saved. I just knew that was important. And at such an early age, and this is the problem that I think that we have in our culture to begin with, is we don't teach ourselves this. And it's not people's fault. I'm a huge advocate. I really wish schools would incorporate personal finance and money
right.
into curriculum more, but that's a story for another day.
Right. Yeah.
Because the earlier you're teaching that, the more that just becomes ingrained. And so it just was understood. I just knew that that's what you do, is you save. I'm still playing shortstop for the White Sox.
Right. just saving those millions that you were getting paid, right?
That's what you do, is you earn money and you build, you save. It was important, but it was nothing that I wanted to do at that point. That didn't happen until several years later when I was in college. It wasn't until tragedy hit my family and the experiences that we went through for a number of years, from really 1995, especially 95 through 98. Those were the formative years that really impacted me, and where I realized that.
Yeah, give us the Reader's Digest.
Yeah, but it's a good story, because I think a lot of people can relate to it.
Absolutely. It's life really happening, right?
Yeah, this is the reason why I got into it, is the very reason why it's important, because a life event happens. Well, in my case, what it was, my younger brother, Rob, who was a tremendous athlete, 3 years younger than me. By the time he had gotten into high school, he had been treated for epilepsy, real mild, petite mal seizures, nothing serious. Medication was treating it, but over the span of a couple of years while he was in high school, it started to get worse and more frequent. After going to Mayo Clinic and all these places, we realized, what's going on? And unfortunately, when he was 16, 17, we were at, I want to say it was at Northwestern Hospital in Chicago. I grew up outside of Chicago. He was in for a week of tests, and they realized that the seizures were coming from a specific spot in his brain. Turned out that he had a brain tumor, which is never an easy thing to hear. It's scary. Of course, he's rocked. You got to remember, he's normal, healthy, despite the seizures. He's living a normal life. He's top of his class. He's one of the best baseball players in the area. He's a great football. He's just a great athlete and a great person. So the doctors are telling us it's okay. It's benign, and it's not terminal, and so January 5th of 1995 was the big day to go in for surgery, and that's when everything changed. And it turned out the tumor had embedded itself into I believe it's the carotid artery. So when that tumor was removed, the core of it was embedded. They had to get it out, and when they did that, it ruptured the artery. So they immediately, doctor didn't panic, they put him into a drug-induced coma in order to let everything. The damage was significant. So
what was the end result was that when he woke up,
he came out of the coma, they left him in for about 9 days, I think, and they slowly bring him out. Unfortunately, as he was coming out, he suffered a massive stroke at 17 years old. He's never going to walk again. He's never going to talk.
Yeah. So
now, in an instant,
very short period of time, everything changed. Right. And I know that in 1995, hospital costs were not nearly what they are today, but it's still a significant cost.
Yeah, and this is the first part of my story where I realized, wow, when we started to find out how much All of this treatment and his surgeries and his care and his recovery is going to cost. We're talking millions of dollars. And I realized we're not going to pay any of that because we're fortunate. My dad was a teacher and had, at the time, just fantastic health insurance covers. Can you imagine if you didn't have that? Because the end story is a great one. He suffered major brain damage, and his life was changed forever, but he overcame so much. He was walking within a matter of months. He was talking almost within days, but he became a different person. But it is a good story because of what he accomplishes over the next 20 years of his life, which I'll plug his book.
Yeah, you can plug his book.
He's decided to open up and start sharing his story of recovery with other people. And for the last 3-4 years, he's been writing his story in his own words. And he just published it himself a couple of months ago. He's different. I mean, he'll be the first to tell you, his brain doesn't work the way ours does. Communicating is much more of a challenge. But this is written from his perspective and in his words, letting you inside somebody who suffered a major traumatic brain injury, essentially, whose life was changed. And he's talking about who he became and how he reinvented himself. And so his story is much better than mine. What I was learning from all of this over the years was the financial impact that all this had.
Right. So when all that came down and, your brother went through that, your family went through that, it was a gift that there was insurance in place. So did you recognize that I want to make sure that people are covered for this kind of stuff?
And no, it really wasn't even so much about insurance itself. It just was about the idea of planning ahead and having stuff in place in case things happen. What really started to trigger it, what happens if my parents are gone? Who's going to take care of me? And now you're talking about, how to ensure that he's always going to have that care. And you've got to think about all these contingencies.
At that age, at that time, we're thinking of these contingencies and looking at that yourself?
No, I was learning about how much there is to understand and know, because if we didn't start making the financial moves we were at, he was no longer going to be eligible for benefits. I had to be involved with this because we needed to be able to set up trusts. We had to understand why my brother could not hold any money or assets. We have to think outside the box. And this is where a lot of people need help. And it got me interested. And by the time I got out of school, now I'm realizing that's what I want to do. Is I want to help families who have gone through or may go through these dramatic, awful events and help them mitigate the financial impact and manage all of those aspects of the financial situation that they're going to need help with.
So when you graduated from college, was that solidified? Did you go into the investment world?
Just about. And by then I felt like I didn't quite have the background yet. I didn't have the experience. So I started working for Wells Fargo. And to me, this was a stepping stone that I was going to use this to work my way into their wealth management area.
And you followed the path. You were with them. How long were you with them?
18 years.
You got to be in a financial department for a short period of time.
Yeah. So I had a cup of coffee there. It was nothing like what I expected. And a lot of this had to do with their approach, but it was much more cookie cutter, order taking. It wasn't planning. It wasn't taking the time to sit down and learn about a family, their needs and their wants and situations. There was no advising. There was no long-term.
I mean, you went with the idea, let's get experience, let's work for the big company. You finally got into a position that you had gone after, and it wasn't what you wanted. It was the way they were doing it, not the actual work itself. And you were able to distinguish that.
But I didn't at first. All right, well, financial planning isn't what I thought it was. Fine, and that was that. But shortly thereafter, I realized, okay, that's just how Wells approaches it. So I'm like, well, I guess it's just not in the cards, even though I knew there were other places that that I would be able to do what I wanted to. But I wrote it off. I was scared. Plain and simple. I was scared of walking away because I knew what it meant was starting all over again with another organization at zero.
So you did the toe dip into advanced services, and that wasn't fun. It wasn't what you wanted. So you went and found another department, continued to work, and convinced yourself, A, that dream had passed you by, and then B, that you were happy doing what you were doing.
Until I got laid off.
Right. Then they helped you along.
That's what happened. That's really what it was. It was the aha moment. Until all of a sudden they said, we're going to do some things a little different, and thanks for everything you did for us, but we're going to eliminate your entire department, cut you loose, essentially. So that was that. And
so what year was that, and how old were you?
This was 2016, so I would have been 41, 42.
Okay.
So I went out and started looking for other opportunities, not looking into financial planning, not looking at investment advisory or anything of that nature, because I realized that that's starting all over. I'm looking for management roles like I had at Wells, at other companies. The problem was, at my level, I couldn't get in anywhere. The only way I was going to get hired was to take a step back and work my way back up again. It'll take a few years. Just have to be smart with my money, and we'll live a little bit more frugally. But I'll get back to where I was. And then I started thinking, like, but wait a minute, is this really what I want to do? If I'm going to have to take a step back and kind of start all over again, why wouldn't I do it doing what I always wanted to do? So all of a sudden, within, like, literally, it was one night, I sat there and realized, why aren't I looking at other opportunities at, wealth management firms and financial planning and retirement service places? So I did. I started to go out and talk with people and have interviews, and was fortunate enough to meet Tim Weaver, who is the owner of Financial Architects here in Blythe, right outside of Des Moines. And just the conversation about the way their philosophy of how they approach it was spot on with what I believe, which isn't about which products and how much I'm going to get people set up with. It's about planning, that roadmap, and then finding the right pieces that fit in there. Instead of trying to say, okay, you need this mutual, and then making that be their plan, making their plan fit within that. No, their plan should be developed first. They need someone that's going to be patient and take the time to develop that with them. Then we start to implement strategies and actually execute. That's what I wanted. That's what I always wanted. I said, you know what? If I'm going to start all over again, I'm going to come to the place here and start at zero, because I have to build my own business up. It's going to take me 3, 4, 5 years to really get back to where it was solid. But that's what I was going to have to do anyway, because I didn't want to go back to my old employer. And I thought, like, if it fails, I can always go back there. And so my outlook just changed. My whole perception on things changed. But that doesn't mean it was a cakewalk. And great, as you know, I was terrified on and off.
It's very stressful to go out on your own. It's a totally different ballgame than working for somebody, punching a time clock or giving a salary in trade for services. When you're the person that has to go out and make the connections and be the talent. Yeah.
It's so worth it. Once you get through that, you realize it. The fact that I'm accountable to my clients. Those are my clients, and not Wells Fargo's clients that I'm just representing. These are my clients. It means something to me. I have a vested interest in them succeeding, and I'm going to be hopefully with them forever. I realized it was the best decision I ever made. I wish I would have done it years ago. And so it didn't take long for me to realize that money and salary and all that, it doesn't really matter. I was so much happier. And it's been years since I thought about, I'm not making as much as I did there, or, those fears I had before have slowly drifted because of the joy and the reward of doing what I do now. I literally I can't wait to come and work every day. I can't wait to talk to my next client and sit down. I can't wait to hopefully meet new people. And that outlook has changed because I was scared of all those things in the beginning. So the experiences along the way, and I would even add that along with being able to talk with you to help me really kind of evaluate and assess that, to understand that, yeah, this is good. I am okay. I am all right. This is what I want. Being able to do that has helped me realize that those bumps in the road and facing things that are terrifying and the thing, that fear of the unknown is okay.
Yeah. And you only get that once you dive in and engage. I mean, the fears are always going to be there, but you have to, and you made it. You crossed that bridge and got comfortable and then excited about these things that on the outside looking in look terrifying.
Yeah.
And what I know about you, Aaron, is that you have walked the talk. When we first got to know each other, I remember that you were just starting out.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had done the savings, which I now know started very early age, and done the financial choices and did your own planning, and so that there was a buffer, there was a cushion that allowed you to be able to make this choice and to start over, to go out and become the entrepreneur. And for me, that lends a significant piece of authenticity to you, because you experienced it with your brother. You saw how quickly life can change and what the risks are, and how to strategically plan to manage something like that. Plus, you did the planning and the backup. So when life threw you this second curveball, you were able to maintain your bills, keep your house, family, all that stuff.
I got this. I can do this.
Right. Stepping out like that, and you have your own fears. It also is a change for the family. And, I know that at home that the choice to be a financial advisor, to go solo entrepreneur, was a stressful one.
It was.
Would you be willing to share just some of that piece? Yeah. Because even with that, it didn't deter you from doing what your heart wanted to do.
So it was stressful. So for those same reasons why I would always dismiss the idea of leaving my old employer and starting essentially my own practice, doing what I wanted to. The fear of having to start over, the fear of losing the stability I had. And that was hard at home. My wife is very organized, very planned, very meticulous. And all of a sudden, now moving into something that was unknown was hard, very difficult for her. And it's a challenge, and it's not going to be easy. And that's what we faced. That's what I faced at home. And I think the key to getting through that was the fact that I understood. But for the first time in my life, I realized, you know what? I'm never going to know if I can do this if I don't give it everything I can. And I had to just be patient and understand. I disagreed, and I was going to do this anyway. But I knew that if it doesn't work, I could always go do something else. But that was sometimes in the heat of the moment. Your spouse may not think that. They're thinking about tomorrow. What if we don't have any money to, make the house payment? Or,
why, go get a 9 to 5 and a regular paycheck.
Right, uh-huh. And over, the next couple of years, it started to become more consistent. And I think the most noticeable thing, because I noticed it myself, I was a much happier person. I always thought I was a happy person before, but I was excited to get up in the morning. I love going to work, probably too much, because now sometimes I take too long at work and I get in trouble for that, because when you're coming home, but it changed me, and I started to try to get her to, my kids see, you realize how much more engaged I am, how much more energy I have. I'm happier because of this. And all of these things started to come together, and I just had to stay with it. It was hard because it gets stressful. Staying positive, talking with you, talking through the struggles of that. I think talking about it was just as helpful and beneficial as anything.
Compared to where you were when we started the coaching relationship, we were doing a lot of management up front, and now it's just a little bit of checking in. How you doing? It's going good. You have put into place a lot of good tools to do self-care, manage the stress level, stay engaged, stay consistent. I would love it if you would share, one or two of those with people that may be in the same position as solo entrepreneurs or looking at stepping into something like that.
Just being open to feedback, whether to you or someone who they can talk to. That was number one. I think that was really helpful to me to get my mind, who I'm thinking I'm losing my mind and make a horrible decision. Being able to talk to you, organize those thoughts, and my approach to things was huge. Really, the last year and a half, one thing I've really embraced is meditation. And something I never really thought of, and I'm still learning about it. But I realized once you commit to something like that, how helpful that is to clear your mind, to be able to step back, reflect inside of yourself, turn everything off, and just literally focus on breathing. And until I really tried it and embraced it, forward to doing that now. Keeps me confident, helps me when I'm going through, because there's still ups and downs.
You're still in business. Yeah. And I just think that is so cool, Aaron. I love that because we talked about, stereotypes before, and financial advisor doing meditations, like what? But
right.
that is so cool
this morning.
Right.
I stepped out. I'm like, you know what? Getting a little bit overwhelmed. It's been a rough week for a number of reasons. I'm like, you know what? I need to shut it down. Just did a guided meditation earlier, and just took 30 minutes. And when I came back, I just a new person.
That is cool. That is wonderful. It's a delight to have you on, Aaron. I love your energy. I know that you are doing what you were destined to do. You're fulfilling your place in the world and taking care of people and building those relationships. Any last thing that you would want to just share or say? Anything?
I want to thank you, for what it's worth. I've worked with you for a couple of years now, maybe 3 almost. It's been a while, and I knew that it would be valuable, but I'm so grateful that I've had that opportunity to work with you, and thankful for you to be willing to allow me to share my story, on your podcast. So
you are most welcome, Aaron.
I'm going to plug you. I think people who are could really it would be worth giving Christine Clark a call. Just chat with her. The coaching and the mentoring, and really it's counseling. It's all of those things rolled in one, and it makes a difference. It really does help. So, yeah, thank you for that. And plug you.
Well, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate that. I received that. It's been a pleasure. Pleasure having you on the podcast and working with you over the last couple of years. So this is great. This has been Forging a Life with Coach Christine Clark. My guest today is Aaron Plaskas. He is located in Clive, Iowa, a suburb of Des Moines. And you can find him at Aaron, AARON _Plaskas, PLASKAS, at F as in financial, A as in advisor, Iowa, IOWA.com. Thank you, Aaron, for being on today.
Thank you so much, Christine, and best of luck to you going forward.
Thank you.